Welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at something that's pretty basic, and I may have covered it just in passing in the past, but let's see if you remember it. It's GCF. Do you remember what it stands for? If not, that's okay, because that's what we're going to be covering today. Today's lesson, GCF, otherwise known as greatest common factor. So today we're going to be looking at greatest common factor, and I may have mentioned this way back at the beginning of my channel, but it's always good to do a refresher. So when we're talking about greatest common factor, what is the greatest common factor? Well, the greatest common factor is the biggest number that can divide two or more numbers evenly, leaving no remainder. So when finding greatest common factor, it's important to know that you're looking for the factor, not the multiple. And you're probably wondering, well, what's the difference between a factor and a multiple? Well, that's a good question. So the factor are the numbers that you multiply together, and the multiple is the answer that you get. So 2 times 6 equals 12. 2 and 6 are my factors. They're what I'm multiplying. 12 is my multiple. It's the answer that I get when I take 2 times 6. So when we're looking for greatest common factor, we're looking for these numbers. So how do you find the greatest common factor? Well, there are a lot of different ways, but the main way are these two steps. One, write out the factors, and two, identify the largest factor that they share. So for example, if I wanted to find the greatest common factor of 6 and 12, I would use what's called a factor chart. And this is a factor chart. So for number 6, I'm going to look for the numbers that equal 6. 1 times 6 equals 6. 2 times 3 equals 6. And those are the only numbers that you can multiply together to get 6. For 12, I've got 1 times 12 equals 12. 2 times 6 equals 12. 3 times 4 equals 12. And these are the only numbers that you can multiply together to get 12. So now I need to find a factor. What is the largest number that they share? So how do I do that? Well, simple. I'm going to look at the numbers. They both share a 1. They both share a 2. They both share a 3. This one has a 4, but this one doesn't. They both share a 6. And notice that I'm circling the factor, not the answer, the multiple. And that's it. That's all I can circle. So the numbers that they have, 1, 2, 3, and 6. And of those numbers, which one is the biggest? It's 6. So the greatest common factor between 6 and 12 would be 6. And that's how you find the greatest common factor. Now let's practice it. Remember, these are your steps. So if I wanted to find the greatest common factor of 4 and 6, I would use my factor chart. And if you want a factor chart like this, feel free to check the description because I've put a link to it. So I'm going to look for 4. There it is. And I'm going to look for 6 right there. So I'm going to write out the numbers that they have in common. So they both have a 1. They both have a 2. This one has a 3, but this one doesn't. This one has a 6, but this one doesn't. This has a 4, but this one doesn't. So it looks like the only numbers that they share are 1 and 2. So between these two, which is the biggest? 2. So the greatest common factor of 4 and 6 is 2. Let's take a look at another one, 5 and 8. So I'm going to look in the 5 column. I'm going to look in the 8 column. So in the 5 column, I've got 1 times 5. Well, there's not a whole lot there. In the 8 column, I've got 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. Okay? So let's look in the 5 column. It has a 1, and the 8 column has a 1. So they both share a 1. The other number that the 5 has in the 5 column, 5, but the 8 doesn't. The 8's got a 2 and a 4 and an 8. Nope. So it looks like 1 is the only one. So the greatest common factor of 5 and 8 is 1. And sometimes that happens. And here's our last example. The greatest common factor of 12 and 32. So I've got 12 and I've got 32. So I'm going to write out the factors. Well, they both have a 1. They both have a 2. This one has a 3, but this one doesn't. Oh, but they both have a 4. This one has a 6 and a 12, but this one doesn't. This has a 16 and a 32. Oh, it also has an 8, but this one doesn't. So it looks like these are the only numbers that they share. 1, 2, and 4. So the greatest common factor of 12 and 32 is 4. Now, if you want to make extra sure, you can always circle the numbers that they have in common. And then that way you can be sure that you're getting all the numbers. But sometimes, especially if you've got a pen or a pencil, it can get really crowded. So the best practice is to write out the numbers that they share. And that's it. That's how you find greatest common factor of 2 numbers. And you could potentially find the greatest common factor of 3 numbers or even of 4. But I'm not going to take you there because I don't want your head to explode. So if you have any questions about that, please drop a line in the comments section and I'd be happy to go into more detail. But what are we going to be learning about next time? Well, you're just going to have to tune in to find out. Now, if you liked what you saw, you learned something new, or you're new to the channel, please click that like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, if there's a particular topic in math that you would like me to cover, or there's a math problem that you're not quite sure how to figure out, please drop a line in the comments section and I'd be happy to get back in touch with you and help you out. And until next time, class dismissed.